your tears? Do you wipe them just for me? Do you wipe them just for me?
Hi students, welcome to my channel Rendezvous with Reena. Today we will be delving deep into the topic of phobia with the third chapter of Flamingo, that is Deep Water by William O. Douglas. The author William Douglas was born in Minnesota. After graduating with a Bachelor's of Arts in English and Economics, he spent 2 years teaching high school in Yakima. However, he got tired of this and decided to pursue a legal career. He met Franklin D. Roosevelt at Yale and became an advisor and a friend to the president. This chapter, Deep Water, is an excerpt from the book entitled Men and Mountains. It reveals how a young boy, William Douglas, nearly drowned in a swimming pool. It talks of his fear of water and finally how he overcame it. So this chapter is an autobiographical account which makes it interesting and absorbing. It is also about his phobia or the fear for water and his determination to overcome the phobia. This story describes in detail how Douglas dealt with his fear, which was becoming a debilitating phobia. It also talks of his conscious and deliberate attempts to conquer his fear of water, and realistically describes how Douglas used his willpower and determination to defeat Mr. Terror. So let's get going on this inspirational journey. We see that the author, who is 10 or 11 years of age, has decided to learn to swim at the YMCA in Yakima. What is the full form of YMCA, children? It is Young Men Christian Association. And where is Yakima? Yakima is a city in Washington, US. Though he could learn swimming in the river also, he believed that the river was treacherous. Treacherous meaning dangerous. Author's mother had warned him not to go to swimming in that river as there were cases of drowning in that river. So the author opted for a YMCA pool, which he assumed to be pretty safe. It was 2 or 3 feet at the shallow end and 9 feet deep at the deep end, and the drop was gradual. To learn swimming was not something unusual, but what was strange and unusual was the author's fear and terror of water. Why did he fear water? Well, this was when the author was 3 to 4 years old and was surfing with his father on a beach in California, that the waves knocked him down, swept him over, and he was buried in water, breathless and frightened. His father laughed, but he was terror-stricken by the powerful force of the waves. So, after coming to YMCA swimming pool, those unpleasant memories were revived and the childish fears rose. But he tried to push them aside and tried to learn swimming with the other children when the misadventure happened. Now, what is the difference between adventure and misadventure? Adventure is an exciting and a daring activity, while misadventure is an unfortunate tragedy or a disaster. So one day, while Douglas was sitting on the side of the pool, waiting for other children to come, when an 18-year-old big bruiser of a boy having muscular body came near him and said, "Hi Skinny, how would you like to be dubbed?" Meaning, how would you feel if I push you or plunge you into water? And with this, he picked him and tossed him into the deep end of the swimming pool. William Douglas landed in a sitting position, swallowed water, started going down the pool. He was frightened because he was drowning, frightened because he did not know swimming, but not yet frightened out of his wits. So he planned to make a leap. As soon as he touches the bottom, he will make a big leap and come up to the surface like a cork, pedal to the edge of the pool, but that did not happen. Those 9 feet seemed like 90 feet. He saw water that had dirty yellow tinge. He felt suffocating, tried to yell, but no sound came out. Only his mouth and nose came out of the water, and his legs hung as dead weights, paralyzed and rigid. And again started on a long journey back to the bottom of the pool. His lungs ached, heart throbbed, a mass of yellow water held him. Remembering this strategy, he wanted to spring from the bottom of the pool and come up like the cork and lie flat on the water and strike out with his arms and thrash with his legs. But then stark terror seized him. Terror that knows no understanding, terror that knows no control, terror that no one can understand who has not experienced. Even the screams in his throat were frozen. Only the heart and the pounding in the head told him that he was alive. And then in the midst of the terror came a touch of the reason that he must jump when he hits the bottom. But that jump made no difference. He looked for ropes, ladders, water wings, but stark terror took even a deeper hold on him like a great charge of electricity. He tried to call for help, but nothing happened. And suddenly from the darkness, he saw light coming out of that awful water. His eyes and nose were out, but this happiness was short-lived. Alas, he started down a third time. He sucked for air and got water, but this time the yellowish light was going out. Blackness swept over his brain. It wiped out fear, wiped out terror. There was no panic. It was quiet and peaceful, for he had crossed to oblivion. The next he remembered was lying on his stomach beside the pool, vomiting, and the chap who had thrown him was saying that I was just fooling. But this incident had left deep marks on young Douglas' mind. It was a complete nightmare and a close encounter with death. He never went back to the pool. For days, a haunting fear was in his heart, and the slightest exertion would upset him, making him wobbly in the knees and sick in his stomach. The handicap stayed with him as the years rolled by, and whenever he went for bass fishing in New Hampshire or trout fishing in Oregon or at pumping lakes in the Cascades, the haunting fear of water ruined his fishing trips, deprived him of the joy of canoeing, boating, and swimming. Finally, one day, he decided to overcome his fear of water. In the month of October, he decided to get an instructor and learn to swim. He went to the pool and practiced 5 days a week. Instructor had put a belt around him. A rope attached to the belt went through a pulley that ran on an overhead cable. He held onto the end of the rope and went back and forth across the pool hour after hour, day after day, week after week. It was only after 3 months that the tension began to slack, and the instructor taught him to put his face under the water and exhale, and raise his nose and inhale. And then he also taught him the leg exercises. Douglas repeated these exercises hundreds of times, and thus, piece by piece, the instructor built a swimmer out of Douglas. Meaning, after Douglas had perfected each piece, he would put them together into an integrated whole, like a puzzle, children. We have to put all the parts in the right manner at the right place to make a picture or sense out of it. Similarly, all the exercises go together to be successful in swimming. And finally, one day the instructor said that he could dive off and swim the length of the pool, crawl or stroke. The instructor was finished, but I was not finished, meaning the instructor had done his work. That is, making the writer learn swimming. But the student, that is the writer, was not sure whether he could swim all alone without any fear or terror. And the real test of conquering the fear of water was to begin now. So he started swimming the length of the pool up and down. Tiny vestiges of terror would return, would haunt him, but he would frown and tease the terror by saying, "Trying to scare me? Well, here is this to you." To test himself further, he went to Lake Wentworth in New Hampshire, dived off a dock at Triggs Island, and swam 2 miles across the lake to Stamp Act Island. When he was in the middle of the lake, he put his face inside the water and saw nothing but bottomless water. The old sensation returned, but he laughed and said, "Well, Mr. Terror, what do you think you can do to me?" And the terror fled. So, in order to erase the residual doubts, he went to Conrad Creek Trail, to Mead Glaciers, and in the high meadow by the side of the warm lake, swam across to the other shore and back, just as Don Corcoran used to do it. And it was a huge success for the writer. For one who had fear for water, had now succeeded to conquer it. He was happy, elated beyond words, and he shouted with joy, and the Gilbert Peak echoed it back. And finally, Douglas had conquered his fear of water. As is rightly said, where there is will, there is a way. The writer believes that this experience has had a deep meaning for him, and only those people who have experienced such terror or suffered can appreciate and value such effort put in by Douglas to overcome it. The American President Roosevelt, who was closely associated with the writer, summed up his experience in the words, "All we have to fear is fear itself," meaning fear paralyzes our physical and mental abilities, the ability to think logically and rationally, the ability to achieve and enjoy, but we can successfully conquer this fear with our will and determination and become winners in true sense. Hope, children, you were able to comprehend the lesson well and also learn valuable lessons from it. Thank you.